Hi, I'm Eileen Bild. I'm with Hotel Talk. Today, I have Victor Acquista, a good friend and a contributing author to the new book that's come out called Win the Wellness War. Hi, Victor.
Hi, Eileen. Thanks so much for inviting me on your show, and thanks to your viewers and listeners for spending some time together with us.
Oh, you're welcome. And your story is very unique and special, I believe, because it kind of goes into another aspect of our life that isn't necessarily in mainstream or things that we talk about on a daily basis. So, Victor, you are a successful international author and speaker following a career as a primary care physician and medical executive. And you are known as for writing to raise consciousness. And I love that subject because, I think a lot of people walk around with being, unconscious in the world, kind of like walking zombies. But you've had some really unique experiences, and your chapter title is A Soul's Journey. So tell me a little bit about where your soul's journey started.
Well, I'm not entirely sure, because if we're an infinite soul, ever is now, ever was, ever will be. I don't know where it all started, but for this particular incarnation, it started in Brooklyn, New York, and I had a very happy childhood. Did well in school, and eventually went to medical school, did an internship, residency, fellowship, and the medical career. I mean, that's all part of a story, but of course, I'm not my story. And the spiritually themed question you asked, I think, calls attention to how it's easy to associate ourselves with our story. And we are having experiences in a physical body-mind, if you will, which holds, in my view, my belief system. And I don't ever ask anyone to share my belief system. And I don't pass judgment on people who have different beliefs than I do. But I believe in unity consciousness, and I believe that we're individuated aspects of a consciousness that we're all connected to. All the entire universe, the multiverse, and so on, is all an aspect of the same consciousness. But we have this individuated soul essence that is unique. It's a fractal version, if you will, and each time there is a fractal representation, you don't lose the essence of what the entire pattern is. And so all of consciousness is represented in that fractal expression that is uniquely Victor, and is housed in this body mind. And just to put it more metaphorically, I think in terms of the ocean and the cup. And the ocean is the vast, infinite spirit. You grab a cupful of that ocean, and that's your soul essence that is housed in the cup. The cup is your body mind. And we often get lost in the story of the cup, often recognizing that there are blemishes or cracks or imperfections of one sort or another. But in fact, that cup is itself an expression of divinity. And so the whole package deal, mind, body, soul, spirit, is all an aspect of divine unity consciousness. And my recognition of spiritual things, I think, has been growing since probably later childhood. I remember having a discussion with my mother when I was still well, I think I was in 7th or 8th grade at the time, saying, Mom, I feel like I'm different than other, other people my age. And I couldn't really articulate why that was. A lot of it had to do with intellect, because, I do have, probably a big head in more ways than one. But it was something else, and I understand it retrospectively. I didn't quite understand it at the time. I did not have any powerful metaphysical experiences that sort of strip back the veil. But fast forwarding to this story, I had set as an intention some time ago, within the past year or so, that I wanted to more fully integrate my higher self, that soul self, with this particular human expression in my day-to-day life, in how I encountered people and things throughout the day, every moment, every time. How can I more fully be expressing the higher self? And I distinguish between the more egoic self that's associated with story, the labels of who you are, doctor, I'm an author, I'm a husband, I'm a father, all of these labels, that those are all part of that ego identity. And I don't disparage the ego. I think the ego is very important. But I think the ego expands as we more fully integrate into our higher self, because it's a higher state of consciousness. And that's what I had set as an intention. I don't want to jettison my egoic self. I just want to embody my spirituality. I'm a big fan of the concept of embodied spirituality. And then I had, an opportunity to have a past life, well, actually between lives, soul regression. That's where you go through a death experience under a hypnotherapist's guidance. And following that, your soul has been released from your body following that death experience, and you enter other realms. And that, for me, there was really a 4-part journey: the death experience, then entering a realm that felt like home, where there were these light beings, these egg-shaped luminescent beings, and it was just a wonderful place to hang out. But I had planned this journey, as it were, with my earthly guide, that I would speak to my council. Didn't exactly know what my council was, but I did have a chance to meet with them. And they were also light body beings. And then following that, I went to the Hall of Records and kind of asked about my soul contract for this particular incarnation, and had wonderful conversation with the librarian. And he was also a light being, but he took a form for me, and he kind of had flowing white beard and hair, and a Roman or Greek kind of white toga on, and he was very nice to talk to.
Well, it sounds like you went from being totally grounded in the world, became a doctor, and something happened that ties to your childhood, the questions you were asking, and something you felt but didn't have a conscious awareness of it, but a deeper knowing that there's something there, but I'm not sure what. So as an adult, at some point in your career, there was a turning point where um, in your practice, you saw people on a regular basis from different levels of awareness of life and uh, you know, the understanding that you have now of a spirit living a human experience. So did you practice both Western and Eastern medicine? And what would have been that turning point as you were practicing medicine that turned you into the path that you're on now?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and I think I have a good answer. Um, yeah, I was traditionally trained as a Western allopathic physician, and that's what people's understanding of regular MD doctor is really focused on a particular way of helping people to address their medical needs, to be healthier, and so on and so forth. And I recognized how insufficient my training was, that I had a very limited toolbox. And so I went on a personal journey to explore other approaches to health and healing. I did some studying of Chinese medicine and their approaches, Ayurvedic medicine, but many healing techniques, massage therapy, Reiki, which is energy based, and I actually took some training in Reiki. But the more I studied different approaches to health and healing, the more I came to recognize them as tools in a toolbox. That it's a particular perspective or lens that you use to understand the person and whatever they're there for you to help heal. But at a much deeper level, all healing involves the movement and transfer of energy. And so how that is done and the training and the techniques that are employed, I became more and more aware of. And I wrote a book about this, which was really quite far afield from the way I was trained. In some respects, it was a little bit of a renegade thing, not because other people hadn't talked about mind, body, and spirit, which I talk about in the book, but I also talk about environment. Environment there is the social and cultural environment that helps shape our belief systems and our values and so on. I felt a lot of the work I was doing as a primary care physician really fell under the umbrella of social work. And a lot of people don't realize that the number one determinant of health outcomes in this country is socioeconomic status. I will bet you that most physicians don't know that. And then there were topics that I had come to understand as really being important for health and healing. My favorite one is forgiveness. There are actually studies on forgiveness that demonstrate with good, rigorous scientific methodology that people who are trained in forgiveness have reduction in chronic pain, reduction in their blood pressure, increased sense of optimism. I can name a dozen more beneficial effects of forgiveness. And yet, if you go to see your primary care physician, it's unlikely that they explore this aspect of your health. And as I realized my limitations, particularly in the framework of how medical care is delivered. You have a 15-minute appointment and you're focused on a problem. You're not focused on a person with a problem. You're focused on a problem. And to me, that was just an inadequate way of approaching health and healing. And I tried to, within the constraints of time, and also within the constraints of what people are ready to explore. In the book I read, I wrote, I think I said something, sometimes I felt the best prescription I could give someone was to go make brownies for their church bake sale. Well, you think about that. It gives you a sense of purpose. You're with other people. You are contributing. Volunteering is another. People who practice volunteerism have better health outcomes. So why isn't this part of what we're trained to be asking questions about? And then most importantly, I had already concluded that we have a spiritual core, and none of my training addressed that. There were surrogate things that were taught in and around, well, if you are a member of a faith-based and practicing member of a faith-based community, that suggests that you're more spiritual. Well, that wasn't my experience. My experience is the first people to cut you off in the parking lot after church are the ones who just left church. I mean, I'm joking, but I'm just trying to illustrate that going to church or temple, or synagogue, or mosque, I mean, that doesn't make you a spiritual person. Spirituality to me is more about connecting to infinite source, and walk in nature and being mindfully aware of what you have in front of you. That to me is spiritual. And why isn't that a prescription that we give people? It's like, oh, you're struggling with this? Here, this will be a lot better than Prozac. I use as an example depression. I don't feel like doing anything. I've lost my energy. I have no zest for life. I'm not sleeping well. Well, there are a lot of people who are labeled as having depression who are really struggling with a spiritual matter. They're disconnected from source. Maybe they're angry at God because their life hasn't turned out the way they want, or they think it should be. Should, of course, is a word of judgment. Or maybe they feel God has abandoned them, and they feel so lonely and isolated and depressed. Well, the solution to that isn't an antidepressant pill. It's to probe what gives them a sense of purpose and meaning in life. How can they connect to that divine essence within themselves, and not feel so despondent or sometimes despairing. Despair is, to me, a spiritual malady, not a psychological malady.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. What I'm thinking about in your own case is, as you started to become aware of this missing piece in your own practice and your own way of looking at life, and starting to explore that, and then bring it into how you showed up in the world. When you saw the person who took you on that quest and that journey into your past life and the library and all of those aspects of the spiritual journey, what did you learn about yourself?
I learned that what I had written about 10 years earlier, and I'll be happy to read it. It's in the story. It's fairly quick.
If you want, you can.
But this was exactly what my soul contract was all about. I was doing it, and it was just this tremendously validating discussion with the council and with the librarian. Because the librarian was the last one. He kind of laughed when I sort of like asked the same question. He said, "Well, you know the answer to this. Do you want it to be answered again?" okay. And this is it. It's what I wrote to myself about 10 years ago. Be filled with love. Let it overflow. Yeah, you are a fountainhead of love. Do nothing to restrain this, to hold it back. Do not try and parcel out your love. Can you contain the air, the oceans? Why would you want to try? So let it be with your love at all times, under all circumstances. Love with the fullness of your being, because that's who you are in the essence of your being, a creature of love. You are happiest when you are the most loving, because at those moments you give expression to your being. Express yourself more fully. So this passage actually came up in the context of me being there with my counsel. And it's like, yeah, you're doing a good job. Keep working it. What else do you want to talk about? It's like, it was so validating. I mean, it was so also it was like a shot in the arm. Yeah, it's not more complicated than that. And I'd written another book, and it is on, I have two websites, but it's on my old website, Be All That You Are. I finally, following that soul's journey thing, I finally began to understand more fully what that meant. Be all that you are. Yes, yes. It's finally getting through my thick skull. Just don't hold back. And if I can qualify it just a little bit about it's not in the story, but it is so relevant to this part of the story. I think that we all have perceptual and expressive blocks that we need to overcome, or at least become aware of, and unravel. And by this, I mean, if you have this belief system, as I do in unity consciousness, everything around, everything in our 3D reality is an expression of love. Love is the creative aspect of consciousness. That's what makes stuff happen. It's this, infinite power source. And so we have perceptual blocks that we don't see that. We don't see it in other people. We don't see it around us. We don't see it in all aspects of our reality. And then we have expressive blocks. Why don't we express that? Because it's within us. Why don't we just let it come out free flowing, as I had written to myself? And I believe both of those are related to the conditioned mind. We're conditioned to see things a particular way. We're conditioned to, make judgments about right and wrong, good and bad. Who can I trust? Who can I trust? And then when you really begin to confront this way of being in the world as seeing more love and being more loving, you see that, especially with people hurt others, that the God loves, we'll use the term God. I think, I like infinite source, but let's go with God for the moment. These are just words, and words can never really fully encapsulate God or infinite source. But we'll use that kind of wordage to say, God loves all his children. He doesn't love someone who did something bad more or less than someone who did something good. I had a pastor who told me years ago, I think it was in my 30s, he said, there's nothing you can do that will make God love you more. Of course, the correlator to that is there's nothing you can do that will make God love you less. And so when you have this infinity, you can't add something to infinity to make it more infinity. You can't subtract something from infinity to make it less infinity. And so when you begin to see the infinite nature of everything around you, what is there to judge? One being more infinite than another, there is no judgment. And particularly with people, if you have an approach that says, well, is this someone I can love? Is this someone I can trust that I can be loving towards? And when you stop trying to go through the shoulds, uh, which again, terms of judgment, say, hey, it's easy, just love everybody. And then it's so freeing. You don't have to pass judgment on anyone. You just love them, love them. We have a mutual friend, I think, Zen Benefiel,
Yes.
who introduced me to the Mayan concept of in Lakesh, which is I am another you. It's like, yeah, it's like just what Jesus said. He said, love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah, because that is yourself.
Well, it sounds like you've had a great, I'm going to say, awakening of that connection in your soul's journey. Gave you kind of a deeper understanding of what you were already um, you aware of, but not enough to understand why am I here and what's my purpose. And now there seems to be this opening that has occurred that just fills everything is filled with love, and love conquers all. So I think it's great that you've been able to have the experiences and the shifts and the transformations, because you just feel like you're at peace with just where you are and where the world is, and you're teaching how to be in that higher consciousness and how to be love, be in the love, and let go of everything else. So hold up the book so we can see Win the Wellness War, and your chapter, A Soul's Journey, is in there. And tell us where people can find you.
Well, I have a website. It's just my name, victoracquista.com. I have my books on Amazon. I have a Facebook author page with a lot of good stuff. I don't do a lot of Twitter. I don't do a lot of Instagram. I'm there, but that's not the best place to find me. I have stuff on LinkedIn, especially when I write something that I think is in this psycho-spiritual type of writing. I like to share that on my LinkedIn profile.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you, Victor.
Well,
Appreciate you being on the show today and sharing your story, sharing your experience. And I was very inspired. It caused me to think about, am I being non-judgmental as much as I can? Am I being loved as much as I can? And I think there's always room for improvement.
Well, I think you are a force of love, Eileen. Look at your big smile right now. Does everybody see that big smile?
Well, I do try to smile. I do try to present, good vibes of peace and joy and happiness. And this has been a pleasure to have you today. And I encourage everybody to connect with you and pick up the book and read your story. And we will catch up again soon.
Thank you so much, Eileen. In Lakesh.
In Lakesh. Thank you.